All right, it is 7 o'clock. I will call the May Board of Education regular meeting to order. This meeting is being held in compliance with the Nebraska Open Meetings Act, a copy of which is right behind Mr. Eckert's head there. With that, let's take a roll.
Just keep your mouse.
Hold on, my
I can probably take over.
is just,
Go right forward and
there we go. Okay, Jason,
Here.
Cassie Plattner,
Here.
Chase Cradaville.
Here.
Brian Locker.
Here.
Matt O'Daniel.
Here.
Shannon Wilmot. Here.
All right, everybody's here. We got the quorum. Let's do the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I got it. Is that not working? Okay.
The board has seen the agenda, and I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda as presented. Second.
It's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote.
Who made the motion? I'm sorry. Jen just
I
said
did,
it.
Matt.
Matt and Jason seconded.
Okay, Jason.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Chase.
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Shannon.
Okay, motion carries. Agenda item number 2, this is the guest and public forum section. Is there anybody here that would like to address the board this evening? Okay, don't see any. We will move to agenda item number 3, the consent agenda. Attached, you'll see minutes from the previous board meeting as well as the financials here. Pull them up here. Dr. Lewis and I went through the financials and nothing on there that we needed to address. Dr. Lewis, did you want to highlight anything at all from those?
You just saw a couple of bills that we paid to Waste Connections. That was because of last month. They didn't keep the board meeting with their bill, so we missed that. And I would entertain any questions. Matt, you probably reviewed them.
I did, and I had some notes, but I left them at home. One of the questions I had, and it's really not even a question, but just more of an observation of how far ahead we are this year on our tax receipts compared to last year.
So part of that is explained by we have some carryover of the higher tax rate. So when that begins the school year, where we're still taxing at the 99 cents or at the $1.05, and then we drop down to 89.
Oh, sure.
So some of the taxes that we've collected were on the higher levy rate of the previous year. So that explains a little bit of it as well, but
Okay.
it's probably actually the biggest explanation for it. Next year, if we're able to keep, and that's one of the benefits of keeping a stable levy, which we've talked about in the past, which is always a goal of the finance committee, is that then you don't have those weird fluctuations too in your tax receipts as they come in. So if we keep that as stable as we can. But last year, with the additional money, the foundation aid and the sped funding, we were able to drop last year. I mean, we're happy that we could do it, but that probably explains some of that, more of that than anything else.
And then the other, I remember now, I made some notes here. In our special building fund, we have like $721,000 there.
Yes.
What's our remaining obligation to the lease company for those remaining 2 payments?
Yeah, I have that on a separate spreadsheet here in my office. I can email that to you tomorrow.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Works.
'Cause we have to be close, don't we?
Yeah, well, there's two payments yet, and they were approximately. So I'd say about 800,000 probably.
Okay,
is that.
yeah.
So right now, we had talked about, paying that off early before we decided to do the scoreboard project, but the benefit of just maintaining our payments right now is when sitting in the bank is earning more interest than the loan is actually costing us, because it's earning between 2 and 5 right now, and the
Yeah.
interest rate is less than 1.
Good point.
So I guess we
Yeah.
were comfortable then, like, delaying that and taking our time with it, because it's actually working in our benefit right now.
We're gonna see if we can find some more chairs.
Hold on.
Can I
Works for me, thank you.
Right.
Yeah, no,
you guys
I-
go like over, like butt against the wall, and then these guys can
Yeah,
go
we're
to
gonna
try
have
this
to
sector
scoot.
up here.
You guys have to slide down.
Look over here.
You stay right there. I think you
Andy,
just
you're
have,
good. I don't even know. Maybe we need to start doing like a Google sheet sign
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
seniors, so we don't.
Make them
Or
get
maybe
here
how many
before the
chairs-
last meeting.
So we don't have any chairs to set up.
While they're moving, I do have a couple of questions too.
Yes.
On the, like check register for April, there was like a concrete work for an even $500. What was that for? Do you know? It's just really odd to me that it was a even $500, and I thought we were done with all the projects in the kitchen.
Yeah, that was not a kitchen one. That was for an outfit thing that had to get fixed. Was it somewhere over by the blue gym coming in off that playground? I'll have to ask Lauren.
I think it was right where the shop, that pad where we took that fence down, I think there
Yeah.
was the post holes, I think that's what it is.
They filled
I
those.
believe so.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in it's, we'll talk about some more concrete work in buildings and grounds before.
Okay, cool. I had another one. Back on like the taxes, the car line taxes, they're like significantly lower percentage wise. Is there a why?
I think those come in twice a year,
Yeah.
so we get them in like
Oh, okay.
May, and so, yeah.
Yes.
Typically, I think it's only paid, like when the taxes are due, like then it comes in a couple months later.
Oh, okay. Cause I'm like, they've been lower, but they're just quite a bit lower than all the
But
other
they
ones.
don't give those every month to us. They
Okay.
come to those and give those in one chunk, and then I think they're just.
Awesome. And then the other one was the transportation. So in the high school transportation, I mean, which we've talked about this a couple of times, I feel like, obviously in one area, we're using over what we have budgeted, and in another area, we're using far less. So from the budget standpoint, are we going to be looking more at trying to even those out?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
Yep, we are.
And I know we talked about it a little later
Yeah.
on, but there was just so
Yeah.
many things in there. It was,
We talked about that, Jen and I, actually, we already made the adjustments on the spreadsheet of that started for next year's. Awesome. Already, like, it just was off balance a little bit, and there's like fuel in a couple of places, and so anyway, yeah, the split there is between elementary and secondary and determining which is which, so.
yeah,
I had budgeted heavy on the elementary side because we pretty much consider like the routes are primarily elementary, but it had been getting split more 50-50.
Now that it's
So, yeah,
all in the fuel tank,
uh-huh,
I mean, it's hard to decipher like.
yeah.
so
Who's
it'll
doing what?
just be more.
Yeah.
So it's just
It'll
like
be-
it's split.
So it's just
It'll
kind of
be
a trial and
budgeted
error
more
of figuring out
influence.
how best to do it. Got it. Last question. Because someone else asked me this, what happens to, like, in the activities account, there's the class of 23, class of 24, class of 25 in their funds.
Yep.
What happens to the money once that class is done?
We give it a couple of years, and then that goes into the Always for Kids High School. So we let it go for maybe 2 years after that, and then whatever is not. So the seniors are trying desperately to spend all their money on their last meal right now.
Yes. I've heard.
You have a bigger budget, is what she's saying.
Well, it's not, it's what they've raised over the
Yeah.
years, right? So this class was just a big one for like paying their dues and doing some fundraising and concession stands and things like that. So yeah, they use it on some of the graduation expenses and things like that. And they have this last meal and whatever's left over sits there a couple of years, and then it goes into the Always for Kids High School. You see it. So it's zeroed out.
Okay.
Goes into that.
That's good. All right, sounds good. That was all I had for question.
And then you'll see too that we got a math teacher hired, so we're really excited to welcome Blaine Hook and come with us. Not directly related to a lot of the Hilton camps here, but he did say his grandfather graduated.
And that'll make us completely staffed up, correct?
For
Does
as far as we know.
Got it.
Something happens
Got
that, yeah.
Awesome.
You hate to say something like that.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay.
I will motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
And I will second it. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote.
Cassie Plesser.
Yes.
Chase Carter.
Yes.
Brian Locker.
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel.
Yes.
Shannon Wilmot. Jay Stark.
Yes.
Alright, motion carries. Agenda item number 4. We have some curriculum updates from the elementary, middle school, and high school physical education teachers. Mr. Polk, Mr. Hazen, and Mr. Eckhart are all here. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here tonight. And I'll turn it over to whoever.
Well, I'll get it started for the high school end of things. This was our first year, my first year with the strength and conditioning program, kind of changing up what that looks like a little bit, making some modifications in there. This past summer was our first chance to do that. This has been our first academic year. Changes, some improvements. They've been looking good as far as the data coming back from the kids. I shared that ahead of time from the meeting, if you had a chance to look at that. But we've been doing a lot of assessments, whether that is from their resistance training or agility training. Looks like we're moving in the right direction there. Going to continue that this summer into the next academic year. Going forward, some things in the future that I'll be looking to do with that program. Find ways to incorporate technology into what we're doing there, because that's going to be how the students are training their own workouts on their own time. That's what they'll be doing outside of school. So make that as practical as possible for them so that transition is smooth and accessible for them. The other thing that I'm going to be focusing on is to try to keep improving and integrating our introductory course into that resistance training, into that strength and conditioning program for the junior high students, and try to bridge that gap and make that transition smoother for them. Try to teach them the fundamentals of what we want to see from our upperclassmen. How do we lay that foundation in those younger grades? So that's something that I'll be looking to find different ways to tweak and improve on as this next year comes around.
Mr. Hazen, Flying 10. It's the only one I've never heard of that, so that must be new word.
Yeah, Flying 10, we do that out on the track, so that is for their top speed assessment. So instead of a dash where they're starting from a dead stop, we'll let them have about a 15-yard head start, and then our timing system is 10 yards apart, but it starts on the fly. Yep. Any other questions about that?
I saw one, the agility, that there was like the chart there was 53% improved and 40% worsened.
Mm-hmm.
Was
And-
that?
And pro agility?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was something that we talked about, kind of reflecting and self-assessing wise, that we put a lot of emphasis on our plyometric training, and that showed, thankfully, the broad jump and our vertical scored really well. And that was something coming into this academic year that I tweaked or kind of shared time with, was some of our change of direction training, which obviously we needed to improve on, and some of our speed training. So we kind of shared that, shared the load of our class time between those two, and tried to differentiate that a little more. So that was nice to have that data to see and reflect on, to know how we kind of want to adjust things going forward.
Awesome. Are you seeing that obviously the athletes are going to be one of your biggest people that are involved in your strength programs? Are you seeing that, you know, kids that aren't maybe involved in sports within school are still going out for your strength and conditioning classes, or is it still widely mostly just athletes?
No, there's a good mix, because there is academic requirements for physical education, and they can choose between a strength and conditioning class or our lifetime activities class, which is more team-based games, skills. But I see a pretty good mix. It's the majority would probably be your varsity athletes, but it's it's not a small minority that aren't,
Yeah.
which is great to see. And with them in that class, there's always diminishing return for your higher athletes. You know, track season is a great example. Somebody works their tail off to try to shave off a second on their mile. But if they're in that caliber, if they've been training for years, it's going to be hard to see that return. When you have some kids who might not be varsity athletes, that works out kind of in their benefit. They can see some great returns on their effort in a short amount of time because they haven't been in that caliber before. So it is kind of nice for a motivating factor that they can see improvements that some of the other athletes, some of the other students might not see.
Yay, technology. Okay. Who's next?
My name's Jake Polk. This is my first year here at Arlington, if you don't know me. I've kind of shared with both of these guys, so I'll go second. I work with Luke in the high school as I do that lifetime activities class, and then we collaborate with middle school and junior high, and I'll talk about that here in a sec too. But then I also have some elementary classes where we do the fitness gram testing, and I know Mr. Eckhart's going to hit a lot on that. With the high school lifetime activities class, we've done a lot of team building games, yard games. We went down to the park and tried out the new frisbee golf course first semester, so the kids really liked that. With the walk, having just 48 minutes of class, it's not ideal to do that too often because once we get down there, we don't have too much time to play before we have to come back. But we've also walked to the pool and did some horseshoes, other games, but also getting physical activity in that class too, and showing them that that's a life skill too is a goal. In junior high with Coach Hazing, we went to a schedule this year where the boys and girls are separate for 4 days a week on a typical week. And the feedback we've gotten on that has been positive from the kids, from the students. Where I teach the health classes then in junior high, and Coach Hazing has the weights, and I'll do health for girls on a typical Monday, and then boys on Tuesday, while Coach has the boys for weights on Monday and the girls for weights on Tuesday. And then they still have 2 days of weights each on Wednesday and Thursday. I'll have them in the gym for usually a team-based game. And then Thursday, flip-flop again. And then Friday on a typical week, we would come together, boys and girls all together for a team-based activity or game. Activities in junior high make for that schedule to change, where if they're going to be leaving school early for track or volleyball or whatever other activity. So that may have adjusted our schedule throughout the year. And then in elementary, like I said, I worked with Coach Eckhart on the fitness gram testing, and we saw great results on that. And I know he's ready to present on that. But I guess any questions for me?
What do you see as your life classes the most popular activity, or is one that students like the most?
Yeah, I think the lifetime class is interesting because sometimes it's students who are super interested in games and playing, and maybe are the athletes that we see in school, and some are just in there because they have to get the PE credit and don't want to go into lifting. But to answer your question, I think some of the most popular games we've seen or activities would be like cornhole, bags. It's super popular these days. Anything outside. The kids still like to get in the Gaga ball pit at high school age, believe it or not. And I think typical volleyball is really popular with the high school kids.
And I remember years ago, there was a big push for archery from the federal government.
Yeah.
Now, do you see anything on the horizon that's maybe up and coming?
Yeah, I've actually, when you mentioned that, I've emailed with Nebraska Game and Parks about archery grants, and that's definitely something I'm interested in diving into for next year. Well, not to add to the curriculum for next year, sorry, but to get for future years.
Got it.
Ms. Reckart been here for a few years now. Well, I do the K2. I lump mine into K2 and 3-6 for the elementary side, mainly where I'm at. K2 kids, we're working on gross motor skills, just how to move our bodies. We talk about proper running form, you see it a lot every day. It doesn't always get there, but at least we're trying to promote how to, as we get in high school, we're not swinging our arms sideways, those types of things, So we continue to work on that, especially at the younger grades. And then as we get into 3rd through 6th, I'm doing a little bit more sports based when we do our skills, motor skills that we're working on. And this last year, I've been in there for 4 years of PE now. So I've been starting to try to do a little more job of tweak. I use a lot of guidance from Mr. Johnson from before. That was really handy to have from him. But especially as next year going and tweaking some new games, like for example, I tried to put in more like pickleball because I felt we realized we had all the stuff here for that. I had to remake the poles and things, but we had some of that and the kids really enjoyed that. So I want to do more of that these next few years to, I've done the volleyball, the football, the soccer, the baseball, basketball, hockey, those things, and some of those other skill games they really enjoy too. So I'm trying to work on that for these next few years. We collect data through our fitness growth program. That's kind of the graph you're looking at. There's just an overview. That's from this last spring semester that we've had. We've used this program for 4 years now also. And it does give you some pretty good feedback on where they're at, some trends you notice. It's interesting as I see as kids hit their growth spurt when they get to 6th grade, all of a sudden flexibility is going down. So I've noticed that over the last few years, a trend. So we try to do different station work stuff in my classes that we can work on, different flexibility, body strength, those types of things too throughout be able to practice some of these like flex arm hang. I give them opportunities to practice that as we go throughout the year too. So it is interesting looking at the data for those and getting the feedback to it. They are updating their system for next year. They have some new tests coming out. One of them is actually vertical jump. I'm trying to figure out how that would work in class for time-wise, because that's a lot of kids. It takes like Coach Hazy when they're in there. It's a chore to get everybody done. So I don't know. That would be interesting if I could figure out how to make that work to transition, because then they can see that for multiple more years. They can see that from elementary up on how that growth and development, that power they have from jumping. So hopefully we'll figure out how that might work over the next year or two here to see if we can get that in. But I would have to say, like I said, I've been here for a couple of years now, I think. Seems like I just got hired not too long ago. But for our weights program, I have seen the gamut we're at. I am really, really impressed with what Coach Hazy has done this year with that program. The amount of data we're collecting this year for that. The kids can see their growth throughout the year. Like he said, he's got feedback now on how he wants to do it. We've had, testing at different times, but not like what he's done and what we have for the agility. And I don't know if anybody realizes he's got classes coming in at 6:45 in the morning right now this time of the year. And then he was having practice afterwards. So I just commend him for this effort he's putting into our program and our school for all our athletes and what he's doing with that. And it's really been, it's going to be really paying off over the next few years as all these kids growing up. Because there's a lot of junior high kids coming in the morning right now, getting that speed, agility, and lifting work. So excited to see where that continues to grow at.
Questions from Mr. Eckert or anybody else?
I don't think so.
All right.
Good job.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming. Feel free to leave whenever you'd like to. You do not have to stay at all. We will move to agenda item number 5, principal reports. Dr. Morgan, you are on.
Yes, I am up. So we had tender honor band, which is something we do every year. There were 43 5th and 6th graders that participated. There's a picture there of all the sweet, I think these are the 6th graders, I think. And so there were just as many 5th graders in the Pender Gym performing some pretty amazing music. So always fun to see. And then field trips, we are in full swing field trip mode right now in the elementary. A couple that have already happened. 2nd grade went to the Henry Vernon Zoo, and 3rd grade went to the Ag Festival at Washington County Fairgrounds, for goodness sakes. We got some more coming up. We had one today and got more, so we get to learn about those in June. Swimming lessons. This is a grant that we received, I think last year was the first year maybe, with the YMCA in Fremont. We bus the kids over. They do 4 hour-long swimming lessons where they learn about water safety and then practice in the pool 4 times before heading into the summer. It's super fun for the kids and very informational. Mr. Eckhart goes along with them for some PE time too, so good stuff there. Bank Schools is wrapped up. Lots and lots of donations you can see there. About 100 depositors this year, $9,873 in the bank. And the K through 6 total, that is the deposits just for this year. And the total K through 6 is that $36,701.21. And remember, they get cashed out. 6th grade gets cashed out every year at graduation. They get handed a check with all of their savings. So that's pretty fun. What else we got going on? Oh, we had Dream Day. Dream Day stands for Day of Real, Engaging, Adventurous, Meaningful Opportunities. We have tons and tons of volunteers who come in and provide opportunities for kids to see different careers or hobbies. Mrs. Mueller is the organizer of that every year. She does an amazing job. She figures out where 365 kids are going to go, and they're intermixed in grade levels between all the different things, and kids fill out what they want to do. So she works through that. It is time consuming and big efforts there. But you saw we had a rock wall that came out this year. It was looking dicey because it was kind of sprinkly rainy that day, but it held on for us and we were able to do all the fun stuff. There's some weightlifting going on there. Kids learned about aviation. We didn't get to have the helicopter come because it was not looking good to bring in a helicopter and land on the practice field. So not this year, but we'll see again next time. I think that's it for me. Sunshines and rainbows in elementary.
Dr. Morgan,
Absolutely.
Mr. Finkston. All right, see what came on here.
Hey, we submitted these early.
They did, I give them a nod for that.
Thank you. Okay, we had our conference art show, so congratulations to our outstanding artist, Libby Stork, so a couple pictures in amongst that. District music contest, Colby Ty and Caitlin Camp selected by their judges for outstanding performances. And that's pretty prestigious at district music. We got a few things especially about Brooke and Blaine here coming up. So Hall of Fame, they were inducted along with Kevin Flessner into the Hall of Fame during Honors Night. Brooke and Blaine were national merit. Now I forgot. UNL Regent scholars, and Kevin was a who's who among national FBLA. Then World Herald Academic honorees, Brooke and Blaine were our honorable mention honorees for the World Herald Academic Program. They're also our valedictorian salutatorian here on Sunday, and they received their seal of biliteracy. So a lot of good things going on there. We are once again a WISE school, working in support of education and personal finance. As you know, last month we said Mrs. Cover was the Nebraska Education and Economics Educator of the Year. So just another example of her leading the way with some economics education. We had the stock market game where our students competed and earned us a lot of fake money. One of these days, the board needs to support us, starting off with that true $100,000, and we'll turn this into whatever you want. Just have Mrs. Coder lead the way. So, Mrs. Coder leading a couple of middle school classes here. So, but they did get to go. The first place team did get to go to the Capitol and was there for the economics educator recognition celebration as well. Graduation, last day for some seniors was today, but it's May 15th for their last day. Graduation is on Sunday the 19th at 1. If board members are going to be here, we have a reserved seating for you, and then we just need to figure out what handing out diplomas looks like, since we've got some connections to some of our graduates here, so. And then the next day, middle school honors day is that next morning, Monday morning after graduation, where we honor our middle school students. So maybe circle back to the graduation. I don't know if this is the time or.
Yeah. Jason and Cass are gonna be on stage.
Okay, that sounds good. Ultimately, just get here, we can talk about, I mean, just shake their hand, whatever else. We'll figure out divide in alphabet or what you want to do that way, or make sure that we get,
I'll take care of that.
yeah, that's fine. So it's good. We have 60 graduates this year, so pretty big class. Be able to hopefully use the video board instead of bring up the screen and all that kind of stuff, so.
Cool.
Exciting.
Good.
Before we go, President, Vice President sign. diplomas.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Mr. Shada's report, I don't know if Dr. Lewis or Mr. Finstein, I don't know.
We'll just kind of let you read through what he's got on there, and I just added a couple of things. So he highlighted the students that were inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame. So a couple from last year. Katie Robinson was inducted into the Hall of Fame for a lot of reasons. You can read through that from last year. She graduated last year, but her induction came after the state track meet. And Trevor Banker as well received some baseball honors after the school year was out or after the athletic banquet was held. So they were inducted this year. And then graduating seniors this year, who we already know will be inducted, are Nolan May and Lizzie Meyer for track and cross country for Nolan, and then swimming for Lizzie. So, and then we have, just so you know, there's 7 boys and 7 girls who will represent us at the state track meet. We've got some students coming in that have qualified with fastest or near fastest time or great distances and things like that. So it's pretty exciting. And that is Friday and Saturday.
District golf tomorrow.
District golf
We're
tomorrow,
hopeful.
yeah, sorry, and we've got
Yeah.
some special Olympic swimmers coming up too, so that will be, the Walk of Fame will be tomorrow, is that right? Or is it Wednesday? It's tomorrow. And yeah, Mr. Shea asked me for permission to, I'll tell you guys about it later, we get it going on tonight, it was something that kind of came up over the weekend.
Thank you for that. I'm going to go to agenda item number 6, the superintendent report, Dr. Lewis.
Okay, so I have a final legislative report attached there. What's attached is really long. So
It is
I'm gonna
long.
go through all of that. But I do have some succinct notes from Perry Law Firm, if that's all right with you, rather than going through those line by line. So, yeah, significant. I get one of those a week during the session, and I go through them all, so it's a lot. So from Perry Law Firm, who sends out through our ESU, changes that will impact us the most, option enrollment. We've already got the changes to that, to the students with IEPs. We've already made those changes and made those adjustments. Now they basically are officially saying students get free. It's always been interpreted that if you're starting at a new level or a new school building, a transition, you get another option. So we've kind of been operating under the loose law that you get an option in elementary, an option in middle school, and then an option in high school. Now that is state law. So that's how that is kind of changed there a little bit. Training now for teachers, and there's some policies coming that will support some of that too. The teacher training is no longer going to be like we have to have 10 hours. It will be, we present the PD plan to the board for approval. So as long as the board approves and says that we're giving them adequate training throughout the year. So we'll have that, we'll read that policy later, but we'll have that ready for you to approve. We usually do that in the calendar at administrative days, so we'll have it in August, which typically is before the school year begins.
And what did you call it?
The professional development
Oh,
calendar.
okay, yeah.
I'm sorry, I said PD, professional
I
development
was like, what is
calendar.
that?
Yes.
Got it.
So sorry about that. So that's a little change there. Preschool, the state is now allowing 5-year-olds to be enrolled in a public preschool. So that changes things because before we could have them in preschool and third grade and we could have them in fourth grade, but if you, I'm sorry, in 3 years old or 4 years old, but by fifth grade, you had to enroll them in kindergarten or you couldn't put them into your public preschool anymore. They had to find another place to go to preschool for a year or come into it knowing that they were going to repeat kindergarten or something like that. Now, with the new law, it was one of the omnibus bill pieces, LB 71, that we can enroll them as 5-year-olds in a public school preschool, and they'll count the same as a regular preschool student does. So I think before you could enroll them, but you couldn't count them or something like that. Some new changes to the truancy laws, a little bit of changing to what is, it has to be written notices for excessive absenteeism instead of just phone calls, things like that. It's gotta be written notices that they are, we're issuing written notices, that they have to write to the parents about those, and then, any educational evaluations that are connected to that we're looking at, following with the county attorney. We agreed upon by the students' parents before they say we'll do an educational evaluation. So we do look at that, say, are they not in the school because something is not clicking educationally, and we do something. So anyway, that's all good in writing. LB 304 is simply posting any fees that we pay dues to for organizations are gonna be posted on our website, so that's effective in July. So we'll get those up there. For example, we pay school membership dues, not individuals, so not like my membership to the Council of School Administrators, but the school's dues to NASB. And the school's dues to NERCSA, because those are school organizations, they're not individual organizations. So we'll have to put those on there, clarified and accounted for as to would be like membership to the chamber, like dues that we pay to the Chamber of Commerce. Updates to senior graduation requirements, they now will be required to fill out the FAFSA as part of their graduation requirement, which is the federal application for, it's a free application for federal student fee. That's what it is. So anyway, or they have to sign a waiver that they are refusing to fill out. So, Mr. Kingston and Mrs. Top will figure all of that out next year. Another one of pieces of LB 71 is retention. So now there's a kind of a defined process, and it gives parents a little bit more liberty to insist on their student repeating a grade. So that's interesting. We don't have a high demand. We don't have a lot of parents insisting that their child repeat a grade. But anyway, so gives them a little more freedom for that. The Open Meetings Act changed, and for some reason they made a change with the emergency clause. That's why there is the biggest copy that we could print off that they sent to us, taped over the old one, because they said, here's one, you can print it on like executive size paper, and we'll have your good copies for you at administrator days. Because normally it would be July that would become effective, but with the emergency clause, it became effective immediately, and they can't publish the posters that quickly. So anyway,
So if I kind of went through that, right? Two things there. A, we have to allow or accommodate for public comment
Yes.
at all, as we do.
Yep.
And then B, we no longer have to advertise in the newspapers, put it, advertise on our website is sufficient.
Yes and no. The
Okay.
advertising is just a little different than that. It's if your local paper fails or cannot get you published in a timely manner,
Okay.
like, oh, we missed that publication, and then the next week it will be too late.
Mhm.
Or for some reason, you have to call a special meeting and you can't
I
get it
see.
to the paper because the
Mhm.
publication is in it, but you can still give it 48 hours here, which is what you need for a special or like an emergency meeting. You can then publish on your website, so you
Okay.
have to show that your paper of
Record was
record
unable to.
is unable to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, so those are the two things to the open meetings laws, records requests. They have, now they've kind of tightened it up where if they are asking you to do something that you have to generate for them, and the work would take, basically, more than 8 hours, they have to put down a deposit. I have to do that, I have to read that one again, because it was different, this reads a little bit different than the policy that I read. Yeah, beginning in July, they're entitled to the first 8 hours of staff time for free. In addition, non-residents will no longer be entitled to any free time. So the third-party vendors will be required to pay for all records requests. So, anyway, we don't get an awful lot of those, and most of them
Yeah.
are, if you don't have this stuff electronically, then you don't have to comply with it, which most of ours is still paper, so. And then purchasing, you can't purchase from scrutinized companies, which are basically, I'm gonna call them enemies of the state. Like if they're coming from someplace that the United States is not feeling happy with at the time, they're going to be a scrutinized company. I don't have a list of scrutinized companies, but we just have to make sure that by the time the law is in
Not many of them in
place,
Nebraska,
that we
probably.
are not purchasing from scrutinized companies. So there we go. And then contracting itself, so basically, you guys can't enter into a contract with the board with one of you to make a significant amount of money, or I can't sign. It's just some, evidently somebody did this. So that's reactionary on that, but all of these things are also going to be in policy later on that too. So those are the things, the tort claim one, which would have allowed people to sue schools for monetary damages for certain things. That was passed, but the governor vetoed that, and so that will not, and they did not have the votes to overturn or overrule those vetoes. Mr. Moles will be coming in a little bit by the time, at the rate we're going, he might be here by the time I get done with my report, so. And the NASB monthly update is attached there, our report on the safety and security grant. So we spent an awful lot of time walking through buildings with our SRO and with, a little fire and security or whatever it is. We wrote a grant, when they introduced this $1 million to roll out to schools, we asked for probably closer to 70,000. They gave a lot of the grants to schools that didn't have anything in place. And so they approved 7,000, almost 8,000 of our grant to do interior door locks and in between the classrooms. So a lot, it's primarily in the elementary where there's doors that connect the classrooms, or like there's an office in between, those doors should lock in my case. And right now they're unlocked jobs, and so we'll have money to upgrade all of those. But we didn't get the cameras that we asked for. But there's some new uses for QC Pop, and we might be able to grab some things over there in the future, so that's good. And then this is in July. I'm asking for permission. Basically, I have a conflict with a national conference that I need to attend for NCSA coming up, or NASA. And so I'm requesting to Zoom in that evening because I have to fly out on Monday. But so the other director is doing the same thing. The one that I'm going with is Dr. Schnoes from our ESU, and he also has a board meeting that evening. This is what I'm going to do.
Mhm.
So how would you feel if I did that? July is usually it's the board meeting that the principals are not at. We usually don't have a lot of heavy lifting in the July board meeting, just because of
I told Dr. Lewis I didn't have a problem with it, but, if any of the board does see a problem with it.
No, I don't.
Yeah. I should have I should have a good connection. I don't, as long as I've got, we can just have a computer ready to go here, and I'll figure out how to get that Zoom connection made. And Jason and I will talk through that. All right, so.
Dr. Lewis, do you want to touch upon, just in case this ends up happening, a possible special session?
Right.
In the legislature,
Right.
what it would be for?
Yeah, if they have a special session again, they probably would be looking at tax relief, property tax relief. So they bring back the measure that we were initially thinking, because it made it pretty far. I think they were still debating it on the last day, which would be introducing more foundation aid and then restructuring a few other things inside and outside of the TOSA formula. So it could generate additional funding for the school. The models that I looked at looked positive for the Arlington budget, which is good. So if they have a special session, it will probably happen in that July, August, at which time they promised us any changes they've made will not impact the 24-25 school year budget because we're just so deep into our budget process, then it would be really hard to adjust. So that if they make any changes on that, it won't be effective until the next school year. They were so close to getting something done there. So I don't know, what's your feeling on that one, Chase?
Yeah, Governor
Follow
Pone,
that
I don't know
as closely as I do.
if people have been following, Governor Pone's had some town halls about it, trying to gain support. I don't think right now he needs 33 votes. I don't think he's quite there. I think he's close, but I think it's going to be around that 30 to 33 range if he can get the votes. If he doesn't have 33 votes, there won't be a special session. So.
And it would, that would double the foundation aid, so we get 1,500 a year, which was really nice for us last year. It would make that 3,000 a year.
So it'd be another big chunk.
Yeah.
Of the levy.
Mhm.
So, we'll wait and see. And then next year is a long session meeting in Campbell too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they'll still be in session at this time next year.
yep. So, okay. We will hold on agenda item 6.2 and we will go ahead to agenda item 7, committee report outs. First is buildings and grounds, and all that. I'll open it up for.
So, a couple weeks since we met. Jason and I can pull up notes, but do you want, we did some walking and talking about the concrete and some other landscaping things that we're gonna take care of outside this summer. We've got the work that's already been approved in the weight room for the summer and the kitchen, we kind of talked through those and those will be scheduled in beginning June 3rd. So we've got that going.
And stuff that's gotta get fixed.
Yeah.
I mean, there's concrete out here by the door. If you notice when you come in the south side, the concrete's heaved. And so we gotta get that fixed because kids stumble or whatever right there. We can't take a chance there.
Yeah.
And out here, where the bus loop is, there's some concrete there that's all broke up. And we gotta do something there to get that back to where it is. And then we, did some other walking out on the deal, just looking around at our entrance to the gym and looking at draining and stuff like that of what needs to be done. And we're throwing ideas around, trying to figure stuff out. And
So,
that was the big ones, Jason.
and I-
Bus get thrown in on that one?
Yeah, we did, we're talking about
Yeah.
the bus, we have an estimate coming on repairing a bus that has been, parked for about, I don't know, like a year, it's been out of commission, at the bus barn.
I had a guy look at it the other day, or last Friday, and met him down here, and we're getting an estimate from him on that, and it didn't sound like it was gonna be much of a job to get it fixed, so we'll see what comes back on from his bid, and he said he's gonna have something to me today, and I tried calling him and he didn't answer, but I said that, that's fine, I said, we'll just get it together, it's nothing that we can't
Yeah,
handle on our end, so.
and remember, when those bids come in, if they come in under $10,000, then they're already something that we talked about.
Oh, and the other thing is, I have talked to Scott Corney. We got talking about the S-curves out here. So the day after school gets out, he said the day that kids leave here is when they're gonna start tearing up the S-curve and redoing the streets
So I
up
think,
here.
yeah, so I think they're going to begin, if the schedule that they sent me, because it came after the meeting, I think they're going to begin on 11th Street, and then they're gonna come and do Dodge, which is the S-curve.
Yeah, Scott said he was gonna send you a schedule.
Yeah.
He didn't. And
Yeah,
he said you should have got it. I said,
I
well,
did, yep. And I
we didn't
sent
have
that,
it at our
yeah.
meeting, so.
No, we didn't, it came in last week and, I signed her agreement or whatever, so it's gonna straighten out this curve out here by the playground.
But then they're doing also the street out here in front, correct? At Ninth
They're
Street?
not doing Bell, but they're doing 11th and then Dodge and then 9th Street.
Yes.
So they'll do the three.
So they're gonna be like
sides.
the new street that they did by the water tower.
Yeah.
That all come down, and
What
what they're gonna do is straighten out this curve, the
Mhm.
S curve, so it's gonna be more of a gradual deal. We're gonna probably have there's probably gonna be more dirt on the other side of the street than what they're gonna take away. They're gonna come this way a little bit, but the sidewalk and everything is still gonna be there. Everything's gonna be there. but they just want to straighten that curve out a little bit. And make it a
Basically,
little
what
work.
they're gonna claim when they straighten it out is that little green patch that we own, on the
Other
south
side.
side, on the
Yeah.
south side. And so it's just a little bit more gradual. They ensured us that the access for trucks and things like that would not be impeded by what they were doing with their trains into the parking lot, and like that. Lawrence and I sat in a couple of the meetings with the village when they were talking about that, so we had some input on how they did that, so. Other things that we talked about there, we're waiting on some estimates for cabinets in the ag classroom. The concrete estimates for the sidewalk repairs came in, and I emailed the committee about those today, but they all came in collectively under $10,000, so we can get all of our concrete repaired for under 10. And then we decided that we were keeping that bus and fixing it rather than spending $140,000 on the new bus. I mean, they're getting higher miles, but with the big diesel engines, we should get a little bit more miles on those. Yeah, that's what our meeting was about, and then we reviewed all the work that's already gonna get done. The gym floors will be done the first, so that week of our July board meeting, the 8th, will be the competition gym, and then we're doing the other gym the week after that, and I'll do all about that as well. And then I visited with Emily some more. They changed the date on the symposium to look at the school projects that they had in Iowa. But she did bring some people in, and we sat down and had a meeting. They plan on visiting with us, coming maybe to our June board meeting and talking about, after we visit with Taylor, and get some input from our community engagement, you know, because that was kind of operating just off of the night when everybody came in, where we were talking about the CTE areas. So she's going to come in and kind of create some ideas to already start doing some visioning what we want to do.
Okay.
Okay,
Anything else on the buildings and grounds back to this?
no, I think that covers everything.
Okay.
Back to the other meetings and switch to that. Okay, and then finance committee members.
Yeah, I'll make it fast. Finance committee met and discussed and went over our building level budget, which you'll see as action items later on in the meeting. Again, we're reminded that the budget process at school starts well before, I think there's some misunderstandings that people don't realize that we're budgeting year round or working on it year round. We're at it again.
Yeah, it pretty much begins when we submit, when I submitted in October or late September, the 23-24 budget, when I turned that in, and then the next thing we did is start talking about negotiations and plugging those into the 04 or 24-25 budget, so it just keeps on going. The gift that keeps on giving. Okay, and then the activities co-op ad hoc committee met. Pretty sure we want to do it again, but you guys just want.
Yeah, anybody chime in here. Yeah, we met once. We just kind of talked about generally what we wanted to do with this ad hoc, what we wanted to look at. We met with Mr. Shada and Dr. Lewis. And Mr. Shada is going to do, and I know he's got most of it ready. We've all seen that evaluation of 14 other schools that are very comparable to us to see how their current setup is as far as athletics go and what they do as far as co-ops go with their policies, just to see if there's best practices. And we'll look at that, and we're looking at establishing a policy in regards to co-ops going forward, and we will meet again to dig deep into the policy evaluation like that was said.
I think our goal here is to have a recommendation before 2-3 months.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely be done
We got a good start.
in the summer, during the school year, so everybody's all on the same page and there's a clear process for it. All right. We'll go to agenda item number 8, new business. The first 8.1 is a report from community engagement surveys by NESB. To kind of recap everything, we partnered with NASB early on in the year to kind of perform our community engagement meeting that we had, and that's going to kick off a bigger strategic plan session. So Caden Frank from NASB is here. He's passing around some reports. Caden, the floor is yours. Kind of go over your findings. The board has not seen any of this yet, so it'll be enlightening, I think, for all of us. So,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I really meant to have this to you guys before, but I ran into some technology trouble today. I do apologize. It's happened very rarely for me, but yeah, I'm happy to get this data to you guys. Spent a lot of time looking at it, sifting through reports. I know this is a pretty thick packet of information. All right, my first warning to you is let it kind of sink in for a minute. I know there's a lot of information to take in, so I really do encourage you to dig through here. Dig through it on your own and kind of note any findings that you have, other than the ones that I'll kind of present to you this evening. A couple of items I just want to point out. This is where my technology trouble happened. It was on page 10. We have our administration identified needs. There's just a little typo at the top. And then at the back of this, once it gets to page 57, it just keeps doing 57, 58, 57, 58. So now that's the end of the report. So it really won't matter a huge amount, but just so you guys know, I do apologize. The first couple of pages of this is just kind of an introduction for what this is. So this is our, basically just the amalgamation of all of those surveys that were sent out. The board completed one. That was primarily a board self-assessment, which I'll pass on to you along with the electronic copy of this tomorrow, whenever I return to the office. The students got one, parents got one, classified staff, certified staff, administrators, as well as our parents. All right. I'm sure the students probably remember from some of that.
They don't remember anything anymore.
Nothing?
They
It's-
are-
They're all shut off.
They're done being
It
seen.
happens on that for like
Good,
the past.
good, it's all right. Page 4, all right, that's your district data and your background, just some really high-level demographic information. All right, something I wanted to point out is kind of interesting. The area of Arlington Public Schools, as far as census data and stuff like that goes, is about 87% white, whereas the number for the students is like 98, according to our district profile that Dr. Lewis filled out. Just kind of a discrepancy there that I think is interesting. Most of the time we see those very consistent. And then the median age of residents in APS was 44 and a half, whereas that same thing for just the city of Arlington is around 35.7. Okay, so really kind of a big difference there between what the total area of Arlington Public Schools looks like, as well as the city of Arlington. So, page 5 is kind of our statute stuff, all of our Superintendent Transparency Act, board minutes, board agenda, compliance with open meetings. Page 7 is going to, or page 6 is going to be your APS classification. You guys are actually the first school I've ever worked with an excellent rating. So that's just, I usually go to the ones that have needs improvement on there, and I'm like, I got some bad news for you guys.
Caleb, can we back up to page 4? Either I'm not reading this correctly, or there's a misstatement in here on the income and poverty bullet point. The second bullet point in there, approximately 4.8% of students within APS had income below the poverty line in 22, which is greater than the poverty level of 10.
That is a typo.
Okay.
My apologies.
So
Should be lower.
what numbers, is the 4.8? and the
4.8 is
10.4?
accurate.
They are accurate?
The average for the state is 10.4.
All right. It's less, got it. Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you for catching that. I apologize. Teacher demographics. 62.8% of your teacher FTEs have bachelor's degrees, which is higher than the state average. You guys are also one of the first districts that I've worked with that are higher than average. I'm generally working with ones that are far, far below it. So, all right, page 8, our data collection process here. You'll see kind of our target response rates there on the chart. as well as the actual response rates that we gathered. Our parents is a really tough group to get. You'll see that they have 81 responses as opposed to a percentage. Parents is a hard one, not just for Arlington, but for every district across the state. Parent engagement has been a huge topic in our office about how do we get more parents to be engaged with the surveys, fill it out with fidelity. We're still kind of troubleshooting how that is. We kind of lean into Dawn, especially when we're talking about how do we get these out, and the QR code just seems to work best. We generally use direct email, but some districts don't have any email lists.
We did both.
Right, we did
Yeah,
kind of both, and so
I
it's,
sent it out to everyone in a mass email, and then QR codes are during parent-teacher
Right.
conferences, and I'm
Right.
like, hey, scan it.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and it's, the more effort we put in, the more responses that we get. It's just harder to track that information sometimes as far as, well, this parent has filled it out, this parent does not, this teacher has filled it out, this teacher has not. I mean, it's really the district's preference. So we really leaned into Dawn to kind of guide us on that and how do we do this. But any of the discrepancies there, you can kind of tell those QR ones are a little bit harder to track for us, and so it's harder for us to send targeted reminders, which may be an explanation for why those are lower than the other targets are. All right. Any questions on the distribution process or anything? It's pretty straightforward for the most part. Didn't have any trouble with any of our admin or board surveys, I don't think. So I appreciate you guys' work in doing that and getting that done. The next page, page 9, is going to be our main focus here. This is our summary of identified needs. Okay, so throughout all of those surveys, we have our open-ended questions, and we have our multiple choice questions. The multiple choice questions I sift through and I look for really connections between stakeholder groups, as well as anything like glaring that may have, like, ooh, hey, that's kind of a red flag for me. Maybe I need to put this in here and mention it, right? But this chart right here contains all of the codes from our open-ended data. My team and I go through and we basically put those into kind of broader categories and get an overall theme of what each response said. And then we compile all of that in the broader report to make this chart right here. Okay, so I go through and I code my codes, basically. And I've created 8 categories here of really high-level overarching themes that came up in the data. On the right-hand side, you'll see a list of check marks. Okay, and then on the top of those check marks, you'll see a list of our stakeholder groups. Each check mark just indicates that somewhere in that stakeholder group's data, codes within that category came up. So for climate culture, that first one, admin mentioned something about climate culture. The empty boxes, they may have mentioned it maybe 1 or 2 times, but it didn't come up significantly. So I just chose to leave those out just to make sure that we have some discrepancies there. Okay? I'll give you guys a second just to look through there. Read some of those codes. Those are codes. It's not every single code, but it's a lot of the codes that I thought were very representative of what the data was telling us. So first one there is climate culture, and that is in almost every district across the state that I work with, that is almost always number 1. Whether that's student climate culture, whether that's teacher, whether that's admin, whether that's board climate. I mean, that has kind of been our hot topic all year long, has been how do we help to improve teacher well-being, to improve the climate culture of students, to impact bullying. What are some of the strategies that we can find to address some of those issues going forward? Instruction, curriculum, and learning. Okay, a lot of learning opportunities. Just from kind of hearing you guys' discussion, it sounds like you guys are doing really cool stuff with the WAGE program and that stuff. Those are some of the things that might be in there. Also, those CTE and trade opportunities, instructional frameworks, block scheduling, even just the way that instruction is organized. That's all contained within that category. District resources and facilities. That came up a lot in our community meeting as well. Facility planning, land space for growth. You guys are a growing school district, right? You have kind of filled your capacity at this point. How do we plan for the future and look at facilities improvements or anything like that? I think you guys have been in talks about that for a while. So, learning opportunities, personnel effectiveness was one that I noted a lot of the stakeholder groups identified. It sounds like you guys have a personal or professional development plan, so maybe some of this data will impact some of the discussion on that as Communication, I normally lump communication in with climate and culture, but I pulled it out because there was a lot of very specific codes about communication, whether that was teacher to student, admin to teacher, admin to student, board to community, anything of that nature I put in there. Supports for student learnings, that's kind of our mental health resources, our SPED support, high ability learner programs, anything that we can do to support the academic achievement of our students. And then family and community engagement. This is a huge common one. You'll note in our board data that standard number 3, community engagement, is our number 1 identified standard for growth. Again, almost every single board is like, how do we engage our community? How do we bring them into the fold, and how do we do that in an appropriate way, I guess. So, any questions on our identified needs kind of overall summary? All right, I'm gonna rip through some of these stakeholder groups. All right, just give you the high level points. This is where I encourage you to really dig into the data. And again, this is kind of my summary of all of the data. If you want to see the actual reports, I'm more than happy to pass this along to you guys. All right. So starting with administrators, okay, climate culture, administrator well-being, anti-bullying. Okay, anti-bullying is a huge one across the state. You see it. I think it's getting worse. Kind of as I started with NASB a couple of years ago, I think it's gotten worse since my first few districts that I've worked with. So, staff, paras and custodians are number 1 and 2. That will be echoed in the certified staff as well. Teachers, of course, I think you guys have talked about your teachers being fully staffed. That's fantastic. SPED staff, and then recruiting and retaining those teachers. High quality education opportunities, right? Tutoring, high ability learners program. Instruction beyond state standards is one that I think gets echoed a couple of times throughout here. And then career prep. Resources, housing, childcare, salary benefits. Housing and childcare come up in every district across the state. It is not just a Arlington thing, that is a everywhere thing. So, preparing post-secondary opportunities, meeting all students' academic, social, and emotional needs, continued growth. Page 11 there, the social, emotional, mental health, well-being statements that you see were asked of all of our staff members, okay? And those kind of same percentages, right, our administrators, there's only, I think, 5 that completed that survey, so those numbers get skewed pretty quickly. But those same kind of themes you can see throughout the rest of our stakeholder groups as well. For the most part, I'm gonna kind of move through this one quickly. Our administrators seem to be very much on the same page. That's good. That's what you want to see, right? If you see some major discrepancies there, that usually a clue into something going on, that's an opportunity that we can discuss something. Page 17 is our board identified needs. The majority of you guys' survey was a board self-assessment, all right? I will pass that along to you, Chase, and have you share it with kind of the rest of your board, just kind of go over it to see, because that's all very specific stuff about board governance. But there were a few questions on there, but just some overall stuff with the district. Strengths of the district are teachers, all right? High quality teachers. Discuss issues thoroughly, a strong leadership team. Those are extremely valuable things to have, just not every district is lucky enough to have a cohesive and a unified leadership team. Most important outcome, right? Long-term growth. You guys are looking ahead toward the future. That's always positive to hear. Communicating with the community, facility planning, measuring improvement and new ideas. I think you guys will see some of that reflected from the community members who evaluated our community engagement meeting back in January. That'll be kind of toward the end of our report here. So, again, areas of focus. Number 1, community engagement, right? Accountability and student achievement. Those are kind of our 2 ones that we talk about in our office. It's really, really important, especially recently. Right, we talked about the board as community leader. And we talked about board should be focused on student achievement. It really had an impact there. So, certified staff. 81% of our certified staff completed our survey here. Strengths, teaching staff again. Community family involvement is interesting. Administration, care for students, collaboration and teamwork amongst our staff. Looking at climate culture, right, staff well-being and bullying. Some of those bullying numbers are pretty spooky when you look at them at first. But then when we look at our student data, we can kind of see that maybe there's a discrepancy on what is staff perceiving as, oh my goodness, there's all of these kids being bullied. Only about 70% of our kids said yeah, all right? Or 70% of our kids said, but I'm not. So there's a kind of a discrepancy between those two numbers, right? Staffing and staff development, professional development was identified as a pretty significant need there. Paraprofessionals and custodians, again. Moving to page 19, okay, students are not affected by bullying. At the elementary level, it was 27%. In junior high, it was 43-ish. Okay, this is where I'm kind of pulling that bullying out of. How do we impact that? What kind of changes do we need to make or implement that we can impact some of the bullying numbers, right? You'll see those same numbers from our administrator, social, emotional, mental health, well-being statements. The bottom there, those are reflected in a little bit more detail because there's more respondents to that survey. Page 20, talking specifically about school district and building culture. Normally we see there's a few negative responses as opposed to our positive on the top. This one was interesting because they were almost even. All right, so maybe there's some work to do just as far as bringing the school district around. Maybe it's a rebranding. Maybe we're really coming together as a administrative and board leadership team to create kind of a new unified school culture. Maybe that includes the staff. Maybe that includes our students, right? And there's some more specifics on the next couple of pages about specific elements of district culture. A couple of points to look at: consistent expectations for staff, consistent expectations for students, cohesion across building levels, consistent policy enforcement, transparency on challenges and needs. If I'm going too quick, please slow me down. Page 23, right, looking at communication from our staff members, from our certified staff. There's always kind of a discrepancy between respectful and effective communication. In this case, right, our effective communication was just a little bit lower in both cases for pre-K and elementary, and junior and senior, right? Around 20-ish% on all of those numbers. Page 24, you'll see I received the professional development I need related to. We have a whole big list of things there. If you guys are looking at your professional development plan, I do encourage you to kind of look at this. What's the feedback from staff saying? I feel like I'm competent in this area. I feel like I maybe need some more work in this area. You may be hitting some of this stuff in your professional development plan already. It's just how do I make it most impactful so that my staff really knows what's going on as far as utilizing data, behavior intervention, anything with 504 or SPED training, okay? I'm gonna move to page 31. How are we doing? Any questions so far?
There's lots of fact.
Yeah, there's
lots
a lot.
There is, I recognize that, so.
So if we sing a little speech with you.
It might take a few days for everyone to
That's
go through
okay.
everything.
That's perfectly fine. And you guys should know the first word is like, that's a lot of information. I totally understand. Classified staff, all right, 10 out of 40, right? Those are distributed via that QR code. I don't know if it would have done any better with our
They got an email
email.
as well too, so.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
I don't know
Classified
how
staff's
many of
another-
our classified staff check their email regularly, so even when
Right.
we're telling them, it's-
We find that it's difficult for us to get a really good response rate on classified staff on all of our districts as well. So I think maybe one district that I've ever worked with has had like 100% representation. So
Where does it usually fall in? I mean, we did half, maybe we.
usually between about 30 and 50.
Okay.
So you guys are kind of right around there. That also has it's also dependent on district size. If you have 12 classified members, then 3 of them fill it out, that's a quarter of them, right? So, same kind of numbers still echoed here within the classified staff data. These are the same questions on page 32 that our certified staff had and our administrators had. Okay, see that bullying number at 30%. Social emotional mental health well-being, again, those same numbers are illustrated there. Okay, that to me indicates a significant need for, how do we impact the social emotional mental health well-being of the people within our district? How do we support these people as people, not just as teachers, not just as administrators, not just as students as well. Page 33, same culture questions, okay? Because there's fewer respondents there, it's a little bit more difficult to see the discrepancies in that data, but I think this still is kind of echoing that same culture message from our teachers. Page 34, again, district communication is effective, a little bit lower than respectful. When asked what can be done to enhance the effectiveness of staff, right, communication, again, social opportunities, staff accountability. Page 36, starting with our parents, okay? Our certified, our classified, our administrators are all within the school building, right? When we talk about our parents, these guys are external to our school, so they always seem to have a little bit different perspective, as well as our students, which I'll go into next. This is kind of where we can verify some of those things, our bullying numbers. Is this really are 30% of our students, and are those the only ones that were not affected by bullying? Is 70% of our students affected by bullying? Let's go and check our student data and see what our students are doing, right? Parents is the same way. Does the communication that we're having with our parents, is that being received by the parents in the way that we think it is, right? Strengths identified by parents though, student-teacher relationships, small class size, community, extracurricular activities, communication, right? All of our stakeholder groups have an underrepresented groups section in there. I'll let you guys kind of dig through that on your own. I didn't find anything super alarming or significant in there, especially since you guys are pretty homogenous district to do this. So, page 38, right, just the discrepancy between our elementary parents and our junior senior high parents, which I think is pretty common to see when kids are getting to that junior senior high level. Maybe the parents are taking a little bit more of a backseat, more of an advisor role, whereas in the elementary school they may be more active in the kids' education. Right? Page 39, you'll see the district provides adequate resources to support the social and emotional mental health well-being of each student. And you'll see those who answered disagree or strongly disagree were given an opportunity to illustrate why. Okay. First one's about mental health. Second is about educational expectations. Okay, so pretty positive there from parents. With 81 parent responses. Page 40 is our extracurricular expectations. This one was almost unusually high, I thought. Normally we see that parents are very satisfied with our extracurriculars. I don't know, maybe our Legion's just a big extracurricular plate, right? You guys have good stuff going on, the parents are like, we want more. We want more extracurriculars.
So 80% of the parents are either
Agree or strongly.
yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
that we're meeting their kids' needs.
Right.
With extracurriculars, yeah.
And on those first two, right, 12%, only 12% said, no, you're not meeting my expectations for mental health. And only 8% said educational. Yeah, those are positive numbers, right? And that's why we look at those things to verify kind of, are we meeting the expectations of parents of our district? Are we meeting the expectations of community members? So,
Well, it brings up an interesting question when you look at this from which viewpoint. Obviously, the job of the school and the school board is to provide the best educational product for the citizens, i.e. the parents
Right.
that are filling out the surveys. And if there's a little bit of a discrepancy, because the viewpoint on the outside is much different than it is from the inside.
Right.
It creates some conversations about, what is the mission what are we trying to fulfill here? We're trying to make this a better place for these parents to send their kids, or, for us to send our kids. And get the best education, have the most opportunities, you know.
Right.
Line up with, yeah.
Technology is effectively integrated. 9%, that's usually about where it's at, unless there's like huge problems with technology. Usually that comes up most often in student data. The students are usually the first ones to say, I would much rather do this. So. Student needs are met by the learning facility, again, 12%, those are positive numbers, okay? Building access and parking functionality of learning spaces and extracurriculars are our top 3 identified by parents. Those are, normally we see a pretty good alignment between all of our stakeholder groups on what facility needs there are. This one was kind of a mix, right? So those are always interesting things to look at and maybe probe a little bit deeper into, okay? Identify what you believe would improve and grow the learning experience of your student. Everything is great, being the number 1 answer is probably a pretty good sign. So, or I don't know, be number 2. Identify the knowledge and skills a student should possess as a graduate of this school district. Okay, state educational requirements. Okay, if we're meeting our state requirements, that's what our parents are looking for, right? And Matt, to your point, how do you provide the best education? Is that just sticking with those state requirements, or are we going kind of above and beyond those things to provide a much higher quality education? Maybe the districts around us or districts that are similar, right? Financial literacy, life skills. Okay, financial literacy sounds like you guys are doing great work with that. As far as all the things that Dr. Morgan, you're doing at the elementary and then moving that stuff into the secondary level. So life skills is always kind of an odd one, because life skills means totally different things to one person than it does. But that's an opportunity for discussion, right? What is life skills? Is that changing a tire? Is that how to write a check? Is that how to apply to college, right? Different families are gonna have different expectations on that. So that's just another opportunity for discussion. Okay. Moving on to our students. I know this half the room's super excited about it. What do you like about your school? Staff and students, friends, staff-student relationships. That's usually the bright spot in almost every district. Thinking about your relationship with teachers and staff on page 48. Nothing super alarming, right? You see the kind of red and orange on the right side. Generally, I see our red much lower than our orange. The ratio between kind of the extreme end of that spectrum and kind of our middle ground of that spectrum, I just thought that might be kind of interesting to point out. Right, I can be myself at school, I'm excited for who I am, my opinions are valued. Okay. And a lot of that falls back on some of that communication stuff. How do we iterate to students? How do we speak to students? How do what are those interactions like? There's value to be found in those details of how we're communicating with people. Basic needs are met. I feel safe, secure at home. I am generally happy. This is page 49. Those are positive numbers to see. If I see these really high, that probably means there's a significant community need as well. High poverty, something like that. And we need to do maybe a little bit of community. How do we work with our village leadership to provide something different for those kids in poverty? That's not the case here. That's positive to see. So, do you look forward to coming to school? Okay, only 12% gives a firm yes.
That's a loaded question.
It is. It is a loaded question.
What do you all in high school? What do you see? What is normal?
This one varies. To have a really big percentage in sometimes is usually pretty common. We'll see that between 40 and 60. Mostly.
Yeah.
So, no. Now, no is a common one. Keep in mind, we usually do surveys down to even the 3rd grade. Those responses are generally more positive than our high school students are. So that could certainly have had an effect on some of that. So.
I think the 6th grade even had trouble accessing it,
Yeah,
so it
they
might
did.
just be.
And we were kind of like,
something
there's no 6th grade. I think we should just
Yeah, I think.
go
we
with
can
7 and 12.
Yeah.
That's their secondary, which is perfectly
So
fine.
it's really the 2nd grade, yeah.
Tell you what, those 3rd and 4th grade responses can be difficult to cope as well. Page 50.
Too early.
What is begins to early?
Yes.
Get that one all made down. Page 50, right? Communication with students. Okay, our students are feeling like the communication coming from their principals, from their teachers is pretty positive for the most part. Okay, that's good. Do you experience bullying, right? This is where we're kind of comparing some of those numbers from earlier. Okay, 70% said no, I don't experience bullying. Okay, 20% said sometimes. The other 10, 9-ish, 10 said yes. All right, so what is that looking like? How does that happen? Okay, you can see in the chart below there, this is how this is going on. Okay, rumors, gossip, online comments. Online comments is such a difficult thing to try and put a wrangle on. My classes in high school were kind of the first ones to really grow up with technology, and so we were like, I don't get that out of here. So like almost none of my friends even have social media anymore because it's just been such a, it kind of hits you in the face when you're growing up with it. But that's a really tough thing for school boards, for administrators to manage because they just can't put a wrangle on it on the individual kid. Right.
Caden, how do you, or is there a mechanism? Because a lot of that happens outside
Right.
of the classroom or outside of the school day. Do you quantify that at all, or?
We don't.
Okay.
We just kind of ask kids, how do you, we give them an open-ended text box. How do you experience bullying? In what ways is this happening? We do say at school in that question, what the students are saying, online comments are happening at school.
Got it.
That's why it's so difficult to kind of pin down really the area that you need to address is. But I think that's another opportunity to say, hey, so what's really going on? Where is this happening? A lot of cell phone ban stuff has been going around recently. I think that was in the legislature as well.
Yeah.
I've seen some schools have some good success with it, so maybe that's something to consider. Maybe that's something that you guys want to discuss later on too.
See all that.
Uh-oh,
The other half
don't change that.
Yeah.
It'll change your life.
I might have to volunteer, that does not mean that you cannot keep that to the younger generation.
Body shaming, bullied verbally. We even have a couple of them that just marked sometimes and just said, don't experience bullying. That's always a fun answer to trust. Very few like bullied physically, getting pushed into anything, but we do have a couple of them. So. Is there someone at your school you can talk to? Do you have a problem? Okay, these are good answers. I always leave the other section of this uncoded because if there's a specific person in there that we recognize for being a resource for students, that's fantastic. Moving on to page 53, almost done here. How often do you feel safe at school? Only 7% mentioned a negative answer. Okay, that's usually pretty good. Is technology used well to help you learn? 71% of our students said yes. 25% said sometimes. 4% said no. Learn better with paper and pencil is one of my most common responses for that one from our students. So just different modes of learning. Kids learn differently, and especially our secondary students, they start to kind of clue into how they learn. Do you feel school is preparing you for your future goals or plans? And do you feel like your classwork homework is challenging you? Okay, about 35%, 36% on both of those said yes. Okay, 52% feel like it's challenging them sometimes. And then 47% feel like it's preparing them sometimes. Okay, this is an area where I think there's a lot of, how do we expand our curriculum? How do we change our curriculum or the activities that we're using? This is really where I kind of say, hey, lean into staff. They probably have some good ideas about stuff they could do in their classroom to better engage those students who maybe they don't know what they want to do yet, but they really like doing one type of assignment. Right? How do we engage those kids better? Do you receive the help you need for classwork homework? All right, 56% saying yes, that's positive. 39% saying sometimes, only 5% saying no is a good thing to say. Do your extracurricular activities make school better? 20% of our kids don't think that our extracurriculars are making school better, right? We used to ask, do you participate in extracurriculars? So some of those students may be people that don't participate in extracurriculars. Do you have access to some of those elective classes? Okay, 14% said no, right? Again, I don't track which students these are or what anything other than their grade level, so I can't point back to which type of student is doing this, but always an opportunity to discuss. Number one answer on if you could change something about school is lunch. Usually it. But that's our number one answer. That's usually pretty good. Facilities, course offerings, requirements, staff for more students. 58. Well, this is kind of where it gets wonky. Moving on to our community identified needs on the second page. Okay, this is our community meeting report from our community meeting in January. We see a variety of extracurriculars, successive extracurriculars. That's number 1 and number 3 there for points of pride. Just kind of looking at overall, right? Extracurriculars are a huge point of pride for Arlington. How do we use that now to drive some of that positive culture stuff? How do we use those strengths that we have to address some of those areas where we've identified need? Growth and challenges facing the community and how this will affect the district. Okay, growth in the enrollment in town. Right, you guys have a high opt-in number. How does that change with the legislature? How do we manage that? Lack of in-town business. See that all the time, especially in communities the size of Arlington. Expansion of school community space, housing, all very common. Identify what you believe are the 2 most important areas the district might focus on for our facilities. Resting room, again, there's our extracurriculars. I've heard that one before. Industrial tech trade opportunities, land space for growth. Okay. And then how can we improve communication, right? Your selection of the questions also tells me that you guys are kind of clued in on some of these overarching themes, right? That's positive to see. If you're asking questions that are totally kind of different from what the data is saying, I'm like, hey, I have some news for it. All right, it's good to see that you guys are kind of clued into what's going on in the community and what your constituency is saying. So, last point here, okay, these are our community engagement evaluations on these last couple of pages. Take some time and read through here. These are the responses that I go through and I look at and say, what do people enjoy about the process of the meeting? What do they learn? A lot of people will learn that more alike than they are different. That's always good. They come in thinking that they're the only person with this kind of beef with the school district, and they learn that, oh, there's a couple of other people in town that, hey, we're not so different. But then they get a chance to talk with a board member or an administrator or a teacher, right? And they learn that those things are being addressed and that the school does have a plan. So, what are your expectations moving forward? Okay, this is a good one to look at as well. Hoping that some of the ideas are put into motion. More community involvement and voice regarding the future of the district. Keep communicating. Resting rooms on there again. Multiple times, actually. All right. That's a lot of information. A ton of information. I recognize that. Take some time and dig through it on your own, guys. I am more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have. My question to you is kind of what are your initial reactions here?
Yeah, Caden, I think because all of us are going to look at this and maybe read into it differently. Can you kind of you've done several of these high level kind of your thoughts about this? Maybe, we see, we're always going to focus on the red and orange, right? Can you kind of maybe talk some things that you saw that maybe will help us out, as far as things, hey, you may want to look at this. This is just kind of compare it to some, you've done these a lot.
I would say probably our top 2 or 3. Okay, climate culture is always, it's just number 1. It's the hot topic right now as far as well-being goes. Teacher well-being, student well-being, administrator well-being, board member well-being. We ask all those questions in there because it's really at the heart of some of our shortage issues, our administrator, our teacher shortage, even sometimes board member shortages where we don't have anybody to even appoint. Staff development, I think, too. Those numbers for professional development were something that clued me in. That's a little bit different than maybe some other districts that I've seen. And then just the amount of specific communication stuff on there, that goes kind of with the climate culture. But really the specifics for communicating with staff and communicating with the community, which I think you guys kind of already knew. The community is just kind of hey, we want more of this. How do we engage? What other questions do we need to be asking based on this information in here? To kind of do similar meetings like we did in January. I think you guys have done that in the past as well. They like the format. How do you kind of replicate and do those things on your own, right? Or do I need to come and do that again? I mean, we're here to help you guys do that, however that looks, kind of what your next steps.
No, I think there's a lot of information here.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think we're all gonna go over it and digest it.
Right.
Caden, just so we understand kind of process on your end, we'll go through this and talk about it. What's kind of next steps on your guys' end to kind of implement this in our
Yeah.
long-term strategic plan? Can you talk about that a little bit?
So we can do strategic planning for you guys. We take just a couple of very similar meetings to what we did in January. It's called the Strategic Overview Committee. It's basically a group of about 25 to 30 representative stakeholder groups. So all of our administrators, certified, classified students, parents, community members, business leaders, all of the people who are involved with our surveys. We kind of bring 2, 3, 4 of those people in, and we say, give us kind of a high level view. And then we go and review those. Maybe it's a mission, vision. I think you guys have the lead statements as well. All of that type of information to give you guys something as a board that you can look at. It's a recommendation for you. What changes do we need to make? It's a kind of an orienting process for you to look at. Here's our mission statement. Here's our purpose as a district that has been created by somebody from all of those groups. Here's how we're heading forward, and it puts you guys kind of on that path. And then there's just a small component that the administrators will fill out. That kind of gives us all of the other information that we might need to put together what's called a frame. We call it the strategic framework. That is basically a list of strategies. My coworker Carrie and I will go through that. Carrie's a retired educator. She has 25 years of experience in the classroom, and she does a fantastic job of really looking at the academic side of things. My background is kind of in the organizational development piece versus in the academic piece. So we work together to draft those strategies for you guys of what's going to make sense for Arlington. I look at all the community information and say, they have a couple of these needs in the community that's probably affecting some of this stuff. And Carrie will say, well, in the school district, the teachers are saying this, this, and this. And we have a lot of conversation about what specific items are going to help you best. After that, we give you guys the opportunity to edit any of that stuff for language you guys might speak differently than we do. And then we also give you the opportunity to prioritize. So you get your top 1 or 2, 3 strategies in there. And that kind of sets the tone for what your full strategic plan will look like. Then we hand off kind of to you guys. Here's your top 3 or 4 strategies. Here's how we're going to address those things with more specific action steps. And then we kind of check in periodically with you, providing the support that you might need along the way. But I can provide you some more of that information tomorrow when I get back to the office. Guys, take some time. I know this is kind of the end of the school year. It's a busy time of the year, so let me know how I can help you. I'll send you all that documentation tomorrow.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for me?
I'm gonna withhold mine. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot here.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, if I can answer anything in the meantime, okay, please, any of you, email me, call me. I'll shoot you all an email support members tomorrow with a electronic copy of this document. Board self-assessment as well for you guys. To dig through, kind of look at self-reflect as a board, what are some of the areas that we can improve our board governance practice? And then I'll just kind of wait to hear from you guys on what your next steps are.
Okay.
All right?
Perfect. Thank you for
Thank
your
you guys so
time.
much.
Thank you.
All right, we are gonna jump back up to agenda item 6.2. Dr. Lewis, I'll turn it over to you here.
Yeah, so Jack Moll is here with our Nebraska Rural Community School Association. He's got a goal to visit all of his members and to kind of tell everyone a little bit about what NERCSA can do for us. I mean, they're great partners. We've been a membership of them or NERCSA for a long time.
This is speaking spot over here.
Yeah, that's the speaking spot. It is tonight. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I'm Jack Moles. I'm the Executive Director of the Nebraska Rural Community Schools Association. I really appreciate your membership. I also appreciate you sharing Dr. Lewis with us as president.
recently and also is a vital member of the market-to-market dealer.
I know how vital that might be.
Well, more vital than the guy that barely makes it, so. I'll tell you a little bit about, well, I guess me, first of all. I was 38 years in education. Started out in western Nebraska, and, well, you wouldn't consider it western, but in Bartley, out by McCook. And was a teacher and a coach there for 10 years, became the principal. Went to Arapahoe for 2 years as a principal, then went to Amherst 1 year as a superintendent. Then I ended up in Nemaha Valley, down in Cook. And I was the superintendent there for 11 years. At the end of 11 years, we merged with Tecumseh, formed Johnson County Central. And I was on my way out the door because I had a 1 year contract. The other guy had a 3 year contract. And all of a sudden they said, no, we want you to do it. So I got to do all that work, and it was really, really good work. Some of my favorite work I ever did. It was the toughest work I ever did, though, putting a merger together. But anyway, I was going to go 1 more year. We had our first granddaughter, and she lives in Virginia, and my wife retired that year, got to go see her whenever she wanted to, and I was a little jealous, and so I was going to retire in another year. We had a plan in place for me to train a principal, and then the nurse position opened up in the spring, and one day my board president was in visit with me, and he said, you kind of want to do that, don't you? And I go, I'd like to, it's good. And said, you've done enough here, and I think he meant I'd done enough damage there. So, you know, they supported me and applied for the position and got it, and I really have enjoyed it. As an old coach, I taught my kids how to set goals for themselves, and so I did that for myself as as the executive director of NERC. You see the goals there. One was to maintain NERC's presence on the state level. We are very much, I guess, a player. We are very involved on the state level and have a voice. And next is to work to get state funding for all of our rural schools. A year ago, 2/3 of our school districts didn't get any state funding. Now we do. All of our school districts get state funding, all because of me, I guess. No, it was the governor that did it. So, you know, that goal, I guess we can check that one off. Next one is maintain local control. And then that's really, when I go and testify on a bill, most often that's the main message I'm giving to the senators is, let you guys do the job you've been elected to do. Let your administrators do the job you hire them to do. And we have too many people in Lincoln don't get that. They say, they talk about local control, but then they forget it when their bill is being pushed, so. Next is promote and protect the ESUs. Again, people in Lincoln don't understand how important the ESUs are to our rural schools especially. And so any chance I can get to tell their story, to promote them, I do that. And then work to improve on the rural teacher shortage issue. Sounds like you've got everything covered for next year, or? Good
She
deal.
won't say
Good
it.
deal. You need to know you're one of the few that are fully staffed for next year right now.
It was more challenging this year than it has been in
Yeah.
the past.
Well, the story I kind of tell is, first of all, this is not a rural issue only, it's a statewide issue. Last year, I think most of you might remember, Omaha had 3 buildings they didn't fully staff, they couldn't staff special education teachers for. And the state, the education committee and legislature wanted to beat them up a little bit, so they had a special hearing in the fall on this. And OPS called me and said, would you come in and tell what it's like on the rural end? I said, absolutely, I'd love to do that. So I interviewed our superintendents. I had like a day and a half to prepare for this testimony. So I surveyed our superintendents, had over 100 responses. And of those responses, 79 of the district, or there were 79 openings in the 100 plus, from the 100 plus superintendents. A couple of them had more than one. 79 openings, we had 71 applications. So obviously some people didn't fill theirs. 3 of the of the 71, well, 3 of the superintendents said that the only applicant they got had just been fired from the previous position, so they didn't even consider them an application. So you see what the issue is there. The other thing that really got me is recently, as part of the discussion on the state level on teacher shortage, the number 2 shortage area now is, do you know what it is, Lynn?
The number 2 shortage
Yeah.
area might be music,
Nope.
might be ag.
Elementary teacher.
Really?
That floored me when I heard that.
Oh, that's.
That floored me because,
Yeah.
you know, at one time I would get 70 or 80 applications for an elementary opening. My last year, so this would have been 7 years ago, my last year, I got less than 10. And we were within an hour of Omaha.
So Jack, do we get to count the applications from the Philippines? When we fill out that
Yeah.
information for the state, are we supposed to put in that?
I don't know the
That
answer to that.
3/4 of our applicants are all.
Yeah. Yeah, more and more people are looking very seriously.
I know
at
they
that, too.
are.
So several of them have music and, what was the other thing?
Hopefully foreign language, I don't know.
It wasn't foreign languages, music and something else is where they're hiring people.
It might be.
So-
I don't know.
So anyway, we got an issue, working on that, to try to improve things on our,
What's
I worry
causing
about the
this
rural.
issue?
What's that?
What is causing this teacher shortage issue? Kids going through college, graduating from high school, don't desire to become teachers.
You know,
It's too onerous for them.
in the hearing that day, Senator Conrad asked me that question. She said, do you think it's pay? And I said, I think that's part of it. The biggest thing to me right now is the way that teachers and schools are painted in the press by state legislators, national legislators. The respect isn't there like it used to be. You know, to me, it's-
Years ago, I don't know how many, but, kids when they grew up and turned 19, 20, and they're in their young 20s, man, they love their teachers. They look back and they have all these happy feelings. That was all they see is on the news, people complaining about the teachers because they're on one side of an issue or another, and this is where it's all happening, these are the people to blame. I mean, it's horrible. Hopefully organizations like Dirks and whatever can do a little bit of PR work.
in fact, actually today I was as part of a discussion on getting that message out. I told you, you couldn't have said it, you said it a lot better than I did. So
Good job.
that's exactly what I think.
Yeah.
So. Moving on to board connections, as a superintendent, New Nurse did a great job communicating with the superintendents. Not so good a job of including board members. And so one of the things I've worked on is maybe fixing some of that. So some things we've done, first of all, remember update. We used to send it to the superintendent and say, hey, share that with your board members, and some did and some didn't. You should have gotten that last Thursday. Did you get it? Electronically? Okay,
Probably did.
okay, well.
Probably.
Every once in a while I get to a board meeting and they look at me like, no, we never get it. Well, I didn't have their email addresses, or I had their school email addresses, which they don't check that often. So, but that's one of the things we've done. Another is our legislative committee did recommend to the executive committee a few years ago that we add board members to our legislative committee. We added one from each of our 6 geographic regions. So now I don't have just superintendent voices on the legislative committee. I now have board member voices, and that's really been an improvement for me. It's really helped me a lot. And Chan was our first from the Northeast section. So. And then getting out to the board meetings. So my first year, I was going to be at Chadron State on a Tuesday. The night before was the second Monday of the month. I thought, well, somebody's got to have a board meeting out there. If I'm out there, I might as well see if I can stop in. And four superintendents said, yeah, stop in. I got 3 of them and talked to them. And the old board member in Hay Springs said, boy, this is something nobody ever comes to see us. Well, maybe I need to do that. So you're my 103rd board meeting. And one of the things I enjoy the most about what I do is getting out to these meetings. Membership growth, Last year, this year, we're at 221. For next year, I'm projecting maybe 224. I think very easily we'll hit 223, but I think we might get 224. Most of it, of course, are our rural schools, about 201, 202, somewhere there. We have all but one of the ESUs that works with rural schools belongs, and I think they're joining next year. And then we have the 3 state colleges all join. So, benefits of membership. If you look at the next page, this is something I put together for, when I talk to people about NERCSA or becoming a member, they go, well, what do I get for being a member of NERCSA? What do we get out of it? And so I try to explain it and didn't do a great job really. And then I thought, I can make this easier. So I put it all pretty much to one page. There are other things that go with it, but highlighted a few for you there. I'm not going to go over all of them, but first thing is advocacy. And the thing I say about NERCSA is we're the only group that totally represents rural. NASB is a great group. I work very closely with them, have as a superintendent and with NERCSA. But once in a while they have to step back because they also represent Omaha and Lincoln like that. I'm not tied to that. All I'm tied to is I'm representing rural.
I gotta interrupt because I'm curious. When
Yeah.
you say rural.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking DC West here
Yeah.
at all, because they're really close to Omaha. I guess when you say rural, can you define that a little bit?
I can.
Okay.
If you think you're rural, you're rural.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is there are, if you look on the national landscape, there are, I don't know how many different definitions of rural. So in most states, for example, Columbus would be rural, Kearney would be rural, Grand Island would be rural. In Nebraska, they don't consider themselves rural. In some places, they do size of the school, 10,000 or below. Well, again, there's a lot of those districts. And what we've done in NERCS is just said, and it's a very common definition, is if they think they're rural, and that's kind of what we've adopted.
Got it. Fair enough.
Yeah. There will come a time when DC West does not consider themselves rural, they won't join. And in fact, when I mentioned that to them tonight, they kind of laughed and said, yeah, that's probably in our future, but how far out is it? We have some paid for services. We do planning. And the planning we do is not a full-scale strategic planning. It's more of a lesser, I don't want to say lesser, but shorter-based planning of board and administration planning type thing. We have consultants that do that, our work. I go with them once in a while just to watch them work to see how the process works. The other is superintendent search and principal search planning or services. We added the principal search service a couple years ago. We had a couple schools that we had helped hire a superintendent, but the principal was also leaving. And so they asked us if we'd help the new superintendent who was working in another district to help them hire principals. And so we added that service in. A couple of our 2 events, big events really. First of all, our spring conference is in March. And have any of you been, I know Don's been, have any of the rest of you been? Encourage you to come to that sometime in Kearney. And I know from my board's perspective, when I was superintendent, they always said it was their favorite one to go to because it was all about rural school issues and smaller school issues. The other thing we have is a legislative forum in February, and we wait until all the bills that are introduced, and then inviting some senators and like that, and the governor, if the governor can make it, and kind of outline what to expect out of the session. U.S. Bank One Card Program, are you guys part of that? Okay, I'll mention it. This is a program that started a few years before I became executive director. It's a purchase card program. It's not a credit card. It's not a debit card. And kind of give you an example of the way we worked it. We were one of the first districts that got in.
And the district decides who gets cards, how many cards you get, whatever. What I did is I got one for every staff member, and then we kept them all on file, except for the administrators and my head of maintenance. And what you do is you set a purchase limit on the card. So every card had $1 on it, except for the administrators and the head of maintenance, and they were under strict orders how to use that thing. But so our cross-country coach would get ready to take kids out of state cross-country, come in, check out the card. My business manager would raise the purchase limit on it so they could use it for gas, meals. We didn't use lodging, but if they could use lodging, it would cover all that. Bring it back in, turn in receipts, drop it back down to $1, put it back on file. Teacher would come in and order textbooks, for example. In a school, you got to do purchase orders and all that. With this, the teacher would come in, check out their card to them. We'd raise the limit on the card to cover the cost of the purchase. They'd call it in or go online to do it. Usually do it right in the office, turn the card back in, drop it back down to $1, and work pretty slick. For the school, some benefits. Well, first of all, ease of use is one of the things. When you send kids off on an event, I don't know how you guys do it. We used to send $10 for meals for every kid. We just give them $10. Well, we never saw anything back on that. So with this, the coach or sponsor was purchasing meals on the card. But other than these ease of use, for the business manager, they can print out any report you want at any time that really explains how things were used and where it was used, and you can track things. The other thing is, since NERCSA has the contract, anything with fraud or like that goes on NERCSA, not on the district. And we've had 3 times in the life of it that there was a question of fraud or misuse or whatever, and each time it was worked out. But if there had been some kind of penalty, it would have gone on NERCSA, not on the district. For NERCSA, what happens is on every transaction, there's a transaction fee that's paid by the vendor, and US Bank gets most of that. NERCSA gets a cut of that. That goes into our scholarship program. And our scholarship program, I'll go right to that now. Used to be, we gave it, I was the head of that committee for about 17 years, and we used to give out $750, $500, and $250 scholarships, 3 apiece. And at one time, we were at $250 and $100. Well, how far does $100 go on a scholarship? Not very far. And through our one card program and through a benefactor that came along, we've got a sustainable plan in place now. For about the last 4 years, we've given out 22 $2,000 scholarships, and 20 of those $2,000 scholarships going to kids going into education. So that's one of the things we're trying to do to help with the shortage issue. One of the things that kind of caught my ear when he was talking about mental health and like that, we did start a new program this year. We're in a partnership with a group called Newly Teletherapy. They do teletherapy services for mental health. And when they first started talking to me about this, it's a group I'd worked with the people before. I hadn't worked with a company. They just started this new company, but they're based out of Maryland, but they provide mental health teletherapy services by Nebraska licensed counselors, and very cost effective. But when they're talking to me about it, they're talking about with students, and a lot of schools, most schools are trying to do something to provide services, and you guys are probably no different. But then they said, or staff, and I thought, there's the thing that's missing. Most of our schools are not able to do anything to help staff. So if that's something you're interested in, you can contact me. I can put you in contact with them. So. Moving on to just a kind of a quick legislative report. I'm sure Dr. Lewis has kind of shared some things with you, and I had some things in the member update, but my time up.
Oh, no.
Somebody's bedtime.
A few things, LB 71, parental involvement policy. Big thing there, two things. First of all, you'll have to have a updated board policy. I'm sure your attorneys will be working with you on that. The other thing is preschool, and I don't know if you guys have looked at that very much.
We just talked about it too.
Okay,
And
yeah.
earlier in the report, yeah.
Okay, good, good. LB 1329 was one of those Christmas tree bills where they added a bunch of things together to highlight a few things from that. First of all, QC Puff, I don't know if you guys do have a QC Puff fund,
We do, yeah.
but it can be used for safety and security now.
Yeah.
And not just air quality or like that. Reclassified school districts, I still don't understand the reason behind this, but,
We haven't gotten that far yet.
okay. So right now you're a class 3 district. You will be a class 2, I think, yeah.
The way it looks, if.
Yeah.
if
It's based on
accurate, it will be-
population of your district.
Yeah.
But it's classes 1 through 5. And I know Colby Coash from many SB and I were conspiracy theorists thinking they're trying to do something here. And
Well, and Omaha's always been the only 5 and Lincoln's always been the only 4.
right, and they still are. So.
Yeah.
So. Other things, staff trainings, all the staff trainings that, it always said this, the legislature would always say it had to be an hour or however long it was. Now it's up to the district, the board and the superintendent or administration to decide the appropriate length of training. That's a good move. The other one is, armed personnel. And this is only for class 1s and 2s.
They'll do the reclassification after.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, so the further west you go, the more I hear from board members or superintendents saying, we need something. Further east I get, the less I hear. But I don't know what your response time would be if there was an event here. I know where I was at in Tecumseh, we had 2 deputies and 1 sheriff, and none of them lived in Tecumseh. If there was an issue, it could be 20 minutes before we saw it. So, let's see, the LB 1254, they attempt to do a lot of good things, try to help with teacher retention, recruitment, like that.
Yeah, the teachers have that email. Things.
There's several grants, loans, scholarships, things. 2 things that did not move forward that we really were keeping an eye on, see what would happen is LB 575, the sports and spaces. And then LB 388, school funding, property tax relief. That didn't go anywhere, so I think there may be a special session still. If they can't come up with an idea, they might not. I've kind of encouraged, especially Senator Hughes is who I was talking to the most on this. And I told her about the timing of things. If they would pass something in July, that's too late for schools and boards, to be able to do their budgets and everything. So why not put it off until the next legislative session? Because it would be the same effect. So, the other thing is the opportunity scholarships. They passed a new bill that instead of donations and all this with the tax credits, now it's just a straight $10 million appropriation to provide scholarships to private schools. And did away with the law that was passed a year ago and a direct end around on the right of the people to vote. So now we have a new petition drive starting up, and we'll see where that goes.
Jack, what's NERC's position on the epic tax concept? I know it's being passed off as this big, beautiful thing to end property taxes. In my opinion, there's some pretty dirty stuff in there.
Yeah.
That most rural-minded people do not want or would not like. Probably the biggest one is all these dollars got to go through Lincoln before they get redistributed back out.
Well, it's got to go through a couple different levels before it gets to the school or the county or whatever. Yeah, we were not in favor of it at all.
What's your you have a probably better finger on the pulse on this thing than many of us at this table. How are they coming? How are they doing?
Well, the thing is, they hired a company out of Florida, I think it was. to
Right,
help,
yeah,
And, they don't really have enough money to pay for that either.
Okay.
So I don't think we'll get very far with it.
to get it on the ballot, yeah.
Is it
It's-
still being circulated?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think it's still being out there with volunteers right
Yeah.
now is all it is. But it's, I mean, there's a lot of really bad things in there
Yeah.
and nobody even knows what the hell the numbers are. You know,
Well-
what are they gonna have to charge for a flat?
if you were, owned a new car dealership
Bingo, yeah,
or a new internet dealership.
yeah. Yeah, for anybody
You'd be in
like
trouble.
that has
I
a,
feel like you
Brian?
does.
there's an annual year-end tax on your inventory.
Yeah.
Imagine paying
Mhm.
7, 9, 12%
Oh, I
on
know.
it. Yeah, it put a lot of people just out of business.
Well, people are gonna buy used because they wouldn't have to pay the tax
Or drive to Iowa.
or drive to Iowa.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I hope that, I'm glad to hear that
Yeah.
because in this part of the state, there's a lot of people that are really, really intrigued by that idea.
yeah, you know,
And further east of Arlington, maybe,
right.
yeah, but, well, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay,
Thank you so much.
any chance I can get a picture with you guys? Prove that I'm
Yeah.
And I'll get one of the best picture takers here. There you go.
The one that's still awake.
Well, somebody.
Should we get this picture underneath the clock?
Yeah, that's picture taker right there, man.
It's all good.
Well, you got four of you sitting there, why don't we
Yeah.
line up behind you?
Oh, yeah.
Like how on page 23 is past ever.
Who's got the camera?
Oh, sorry. I'm being distracted.
What are we looking at here? All good? Thank you.
Shame, give me 1, 2, 3 on that. She was just.
I came over here for dinner because I had to go. How much?
How much?
Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Oh, good, I saw that about. I thought you were gonna say like an hour.
You guys want to get names?
I have a motion.
All right, we just have a couple items left. We will move to agenda item 8.2, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve building level budget requests. This is a continuation from the finance committee stuff. I'll turn it over to the chair, Mr. Oden.
Sure. So the finance committee met with Dr. Lewis and we reviewed building level budgets. Please don't jump in here anytime you feel necessary, but as you can see through here, which one am I looking at right now?
I don't know what you pulled up first,
I got
but,
the
do you wanna open one up? Jack?
Oh,
There it is.
sorry.
I do. High school is actually relatively stable as far as what we were doing last year. There's a little bit of additional expenses, but we're offering 2 new classes, so they're basically for startups. But if you look at the difference column there, we have lots of requests that have gone down a little bit and some that have gone up, just for some small things. One group, but you get to decide who gets a gold star. So let me take a look at that one. One group that asked for very little. Sometimes that helps balance things out, but yeah, we did, teachers did a great job. We did have to whittle a few things out and ask them to wait because it's going to be a bigger budget spending year with the negotiated agreement with the insurance thing. So we know that, so we needed really to keep things as stable as we could. So on the secondary side, really the increase there is because of those 2 new classes that we're adding. That will be great for kids. And then elementary is exactly pretty much the same. Yeah, a little bit.
Elementary actually went down.
I think it was different.
It's a separate one, yeah. So they're down $646 over request last year, so.
So I would just comment, obviously, it's the committee's recommendation for the board to pass these budgets, but when you stop and look at these line by lines, kind of floored by how little money some people request or ask for, you know, so it's pretty cool. when you look at it granular like that.
Yeah, and rather than giving them a set dollar amount, we ask them to, you know, ask for what they need. You know, and not ask for more than you need and not worry about not getting what you think that you're gonna lose. Don't ask for it, just ask for what you need and the district tries to take care of everybody what they need in the classrooms.
Okay. So if anybody's got any questions, I'm as the chair of that committee, I'm happy to try to answer them.
On those, there's like obviously a couple of things that they probably have taken off based off of the numbers from last year. So are those things that are, there's gonna be like a list, like those teachers, I just wanna hear later on, I'm anticipating this, well, I wanted this, but I was told I need to take it off because of the budget. I'm anticipating this question. So are there, is there a list that they're gonna say, hey, these are things that we wanted, but did not necessarily need?
We have all of the requisitions in, on, like, that are more broke out on a bigger spreadsheet, and then we have binders with them too. So if you wanted to come in and see what they're asking for, that we said no to and understand the reasoning, that'd make more sense. Some of them, what you're looking at, though, they might have just asked for something big that was like a one-time purchase last year, and they didn't need it this year.
Okay, right, got it. Sounds cool, looks good.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the building level budgets as presented for 2024, 2025.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Matt. And Brian, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote.
Chase Cradwell,
Yes.
Brian Locker,
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel.
Yep.
Sharon Wolma, Jason Arnold,
Yes.
Cassie Westman.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Agenda item 8.3, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve the district level budget request for 2024-2025. Mr. O'Daniel or Dr. Lewis.
Looks like, Mr. Franklin, you have the potential vote first.
Maintenance facilities, building
Okay.
grounds.
So we will start there. That one is down most. Primarily, you see some line items, that went down significantly. We're not budgeting to, resurface the floor. And we're not budgeting to, purchase another maintenance vehicle. So those are some big savings. Those are some things that we're taking care of in this budget year. So we were able to decrease on those. Decrease on a couple of other things. There's a couple of areas that went up a little bit, but in general, what we're budgeting right now is more than $100,000 less than we asked for in this area. And of course, 80,000 of that, no, I'd say 75,000 of that was before in maintenance vehicle. And that yellow highlight in the middle of the page there, that's kind of that item that's been flexible in the budget to help us with the budget authority. If we need to flex something, if we need to increase a few thousand or decrease a few thousand to maximize our full budget authority. I don't think that'll be an issue for this year, but right now this works out. We don't exactly know where our budget authority and where the budget that we're creating fits until they open the LC2, and that won't be until late June, but I'm confident that this is pretty close to where we need to be. The next one we'll take a look at, if there's no specific questions on that. If Mr. Finston would open the curriculum and assessment one. And that's increased a little bit, but if you look at how much it decreased a couple of years in the past. So 2 years ago, it decreased by about $6,400, and then last year it decreased by about $15,000 again. So we're up a little bit. I think we're still kind of refining where certain things are getting budgeted, but then some things are increasing on costs a little bit. IXL, for example, the cost for people of having that. We removed a few licenses, but the cost of that is going up. There's some things that we do around testing that we've increased on, snacks and things like that to keep kids' energy up while they're testing. We're kind of increased on that. We're doing some celebrating before they start. So some of those things have gone on some increased budget there a little bit, but most of what you see on increases there, like some web based software, we're gonna have to pay for maps this year because the state is not paying for that for us anymore. So we've got some increased testing costs there. just things like that. So overall, we're still quite a bit lower than where we were 2 years ago in these two areas, which are the improvement of instruction and curriculum development, but up a little bit from last year. Any specific questions there? Matt, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
And then the final area that we look at is technology.
So a couple of these items would be in both, not? Because there's web and cloud-based,
Yes.
that would be considered
So there's,
curriculum,
but
but
there's-
also technology?
Yep, because there's web and cloud-based software that are used by like
Teaching
different
kids.
areas, like instruction and then there's other things that we need, like deep freeze is one of the web and cloud-based software things that we use, which is our ability to monitor what's happening with student computers and things like that. So every area has web and cloud-based software. You look at the library, there's web and cloud-based software. That's the system that they use to check out. And like in the business office, there's web and cloud-based software that's e-finance. So it's just that one specific code under the bigger code that goes with. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, that's in just about everything. So yeah, in here we've got the use of Canvas, but what's really driving probably our increased cost here is we have to pay for student computers again. We haven't paid for student computers for 3 or 4 years because of the E-rate and the ECF funding. They gave us like 700 new computers with money from COVID, basically. They took their money and turned that into computers for us. So now, much to the point, this year, there's a budget item coming up that we're gonna be purchasing some staff computers. Next year, we're gonna get kind of on a cycle of purchasing about 200 student computers per year. So that cost, they're cheaper, the student computers are cheaper than the staff ones, but they're still about $100 a piece, and we're buying 260 for that. So that's really driving an increased cost there.
In Cass, it's worth noting, like on this web and cloud-based software, we've got an increase there. Some of these are 3-year subscriptions that we pay for upfront. Yeah, I mean, it's noted in there, but
Yeah.
we're pointing out.
Yeah.
because it
So
looks-
that's why you see such a
It's
big
really,
difference.
yeah.
Yeah, we probably talked
From
about
year to, yeah.
tech and
More than anything.
cloud-based software more than anything on that.
So in general, if you looked at all 3 of these areas, still down overall about $75,000 more budget in those 3 areas last year.
We had talked a little bit when we were talking about, in the tables and stuff about, fuel and where those things were being distributed. Is that within this? I know there's a lot of maintenance and buildings and grounds things in here, but
That's
that's
transportation.
transportation itself.
Yeah. it's a different code.
When thinking about maintenance and you guys did your walk around and there's different things that obviously need to be fixed, like concrete and painting of things and different stuff like that, is that already like the summer projects is just an item listed on here
Yes,
within general supplies?
yes,
So that's something that is already worked in the budget, it just needs to be done.
yes. So like, when we went through this process last year, we adopted a budget for 23-24, that's funding the projects we're doing this summer. This will be for what's coming in
The
a year.
following
And what
year.
we try to do is look at where that line item is, what expenses we have to come out of it yet, how close we are to spending that, fully. Did we only spend 60% of it? Did we spend 90% of it? So that's kind of how we come up with those numbers. Because a lot of those things you don't know what you're gonna need, and you don't know where the cost is gonna come in.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the district level budget request for 2024-2025 as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been seconded. Thank you, Jason. Is there any discussion? All right, let's go ahead and vote.
Brian Locker,
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yes.
Shannon Wilmot, Jason Art,
Yes.
Cassie Klesmer,
Yes.
Chase Carter.
Yes. All right, motion carries. Agenda item 8.4, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve issuing high school diplomas for senior students as presented to the Board of Education. Mr. Finkston. Anything?
Pretty much sums it up, huh?
Got him here to sign.
Got it.
Yeah.
Almost kind of honestly, too.
Okay.
We got some action.
Yes,
it is.
Yeah, you have to approve.
Okay. I will make a motion. Is that fair? Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve issuing high school diplomas for the senior students as presented.
To the Board of Education.
To the Board of Education, sorry.
Sorry, there's not anything in this one.
But yeah.
Um,
Do I need to put which year?
Was.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I'll second it. It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, let's vote.
Matt O'Daniel.
Yes.
Shannon Moore. Jason Art.
Yes.
Cassie Fleisner.
Yes.
Yes.
Brian
Yeah. Congratulations.
You all got lucky.
Yay.
All right, agenda item 8.5, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve interlocal use agreement with the Village of Arlington and Agricultural Society for Baseball Complex. Dr. Wilson.
So this is a continuation of this first agreement entered into in 2017. All three parties kind of forgot about it in 2022. I'm gonna claim ignorance because I wasn't here in 2017. I didn't know that it was not a just perpetual thing. So we found it like, oh, that expired in 2022. So anyway, Paul has this for the village and Jason Club has this for the Ag Society. And so this is just renewed for another 5-year period. We haven't really changed anything since then. We tweaked a couple of the dates where we've been doing the maintenance. We added like an extra week for the school to take care of the maintenance on the baseball field. Really, we're talking about the baseball field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is still pretty amicable.
Oh, yeah, no, there's no
Relationship with
issues,
the guys
yeah,
at the
no, there's no
fair board
issues or
down there.
anything like that. So we just changed the dates and corrected it as the right people on there, at the end, and so, the other two organizations were the first to vote on it, but
Okay.
nothing has really changed and it's been a good relationship.
Yeah, it was a lot of work to put this together 7 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to approve the interlocal use agreement with the Village of Arlington and the Agricultural Society for the baseball complex.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you, Matt and Brian, for moving and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, let's vote.
Shannon Moore. Yes. Jason Art.
Yes.
Cassie Fleisner.
Yes.
Chase Carter.
Yes.
Brian Locker.
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Agenda item 8.6, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve staff laptop purchases as presented. Dr. Lewis, you kind of mentioned it, but.
Yep. Yep. So what you see in front of you, this would be for what we approved last year, for the purchase of staff computers. Oh, I thought they had put the new one on there. I don't think I did. Actually, you can take the tax off of that because it's going to be $43,997. It's not the right amount of 47. It's 43,000.
$997.20.
Yep, $997.20 because they will not charge us tax. I had an updated one without tax and I thought I attached that, but maybe that was
Why
just
did
in
not
finance. Was that?
Schools.
Schools.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'm like, what? Because it's a school. There we go. Okay.
43,997.
pocket.
Yeah.
There you go.
And that's coming out of that line item that we approved last year that we just actually kind of looked at, so. This is buying a 65.
Cool.
Pretty straightforward.
It is.
I'll make a motion to approve the staff laptop purchases as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Matt. To move, seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right, let's vote.
Jason Art.
Yes.
Cassie Fleisner.
Yes.
Chase Carter.
Yes.
Brian Locker. Matt
Yes.
O'Daniel.
Yep.
Shannon Moore.
All right, motion carries. Agenda item 8.7, discuss and consider policy updates as required by legislation on first reading. Dr. Lewis.
We really need to this, we've been sitting out here and so we have to read each one.
One-
of them
one
in
of-
its
one by one.
entirety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're
Let me just give you,
Adjourn the meeting and do it next year.
let me give you a brief real quick, because this will come back to us next month anyway. And they're on the board meeting in numerical order, they're not on my report in numerical order though. so I'm just going to hit on some highlights.
Yeah.
Policy 5105, which is student discipline, this is only making changes in paragraphs 3.I, which is student appearance, and then some reference to tribal regalia, and both of those things, that is what it is about. So it's not requiring an awful lot of changes, just that we can't discipline for those reasons. If they're wearing something that's in violation of dress code, but it's recognized universally as tribal regalia. Policy 1050, which is access to records, that's what we talked about. For Nebraska residents, have your written request is deposit required, anything more than 4 hours of work. We talked about that a little bit earlier, to carry law from statutory updates. Policy 8346, which is public participation at board meetings, and that is the public comment there. We had a couple of options. You could, there's a scenario in which you can put your public comment, if it's not your regular board meeting, you can put it at the end, which is probably what I would recommend doing with that. I'll go back and see how I ended up. But that's a change to that, because you have to have it at all board meetings now, not just, it used to be kind of optional, you have to have it. Purchasing policies, this kind of is referring to that, entering into a contract with themselves, more stringent requires, you can't take out a contract of yourself or something that you're going to benefit from, so. In the amount of like $150,000. Policy 8342 is a designated method of giving notice. That's what we talked about. If your paper can't get it published in time, or for some reason they didn't see that you sent them a notice, you are allowed to publish on your website. Policy 5201 is promotion and retention. That's talking about LB 71. That is when parents are requesting their students be retained. So we'll have to update our policy on that. And then, so contracting for services, this is the scrutinized companies that we talked about. So we just have a new statement at the end of that we won't purchase from companies operated or owned by foreign adversaries. Those are the scrutinized companies. So hopefully someone will scrutinize them for us, and we won't have to determine whether or not we should scrutinize them ourselves. Policy 8240, which is membership in the school board association, that is the one we talked about, where we'll have to list those on our website. That becomes out of July 19th, so we'll have them up there by then. Policy 6700 is the firearms. This is not the one where you have to decide if you're a class 1 or 2 school, if you want to allow certain staff members to carry firearms. This is just in general, technical changes to the new laws about like having firearms in your facility for the right to people, for the law enforcement people, that type of thing. So you can read that one. If you want to know more about that, policy 5008 is attendance. This specifically talks about mental health now, as being a reason for like as applicable as physical health, mental health days. That's a new thing in there. And then it's got the excessive absenteeism in the policy, but doesn't change anything. You still have that 20-day limit on there. It just talks about the written notifications instead. Policy 5006 is the option enrollment. We talked about that one. Doesn't change what we do an awful lot. Probably won't change it a lot because everybody's just a little bit more clear. Policy 4141 is the teacher training and professional development calendar. Jack talked about it and I talked about it a little bit about the board saying, yep, that's adequate, that's good, not setting us restricted to hours like that. 5205 is the students requiring the FAFSA to be filled out before they graduate. Policy 6111 is the classroom environment. This is the policy that says we can no longer use the what was the math? It's not on here. They're telling us we can only use the golf figures projection maps or other similar cylindrical equal area projection maps or off-the-graph projection maps in school. I can't remember the one they banned specifically. Do you remember the name of it, Jackie, or I know it's in there. I'll come up with it. Anyway, you can't use that map anymore because it distorts land masses too much. They evidently it was not explained well that, that Antarctica is not bigger than Canada.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yes.
I've always wondered.
Gosh.
Anyway, that's a law now, you can't use that now. And then the last policy is 3571, which says that if we can no longer, which we never have, use a collection agency to collect on unpaid hot lunch bills. So you'd be surprised how many schools actually do. We never have it. And Julia just has such a sweet way about her. Everybody just pays their bills. So anyway, that's what we've got going on. I'm sure another one that we'll hear about a little bit is 3241, which is the emergency response mapping. It's not required, but it's an interesting concept. They got some money to do like a more specific detailed emergency response map of our inside and outside facilities. And then the LB 1329 that we were talking about, the reclassification of schools. We suspect that we will be a class 2 instead of a class 3 when they redo that, which would make us eligible for considering basically concealing in school, which is a topic, and I guess I'm not ready to talk about that just yet.
Fair
Until I
enough.
know where we're at. I'm not gonna have an opinion about that yet, so. Anyway, that's just a tough one for me. So those are the policies. So these are the required ones that we have to get taken care of, and these come back to you in June. And then when we learn more about some of those other ones, we can talk about those.
All right, with that, we will adjourn the meeting at 9:31 PM. All board members, since we have quite a few students here, if you wouldn't mind helping sign all the students' forms, I would greatly appreciate it.
And that's what we did.
Split up.
Last meeting.
I think that's really my thoughts.
I didn't.
There you go. Thank you.